Rain hammered the streets of Chicago as a black Cadillac Escalade moved slowly through the iron gates of a mansion overlooking Lake Michigan. Inside the mansion, 58-year-old Anthony Callahan stood before a wall of windows, watching lightning split the sky. For nearly 30 years, Anthony had controlled one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the Midwest. Politicians feared him. Business owners paid him. Rivals disappeared from his territory without explanation. But Anthony had survived for one reason. He trusted very few people. There was only one exception: Marcus Reed. Marcus had been beside Anthony for 20 years. They had met when Marcus was a young accountant working at a small financial firm in downtown Chicago. He had discovered irregularities in one of Anthony's businesses, but instead of reporting them, Marcus quietly fixed the problem. Anthony had been impressed. Within 3 years, Marcus was managing the organization's legitimate companies. Within 7, he was sitting in private meetings. Within 10, he knew everything: bank accounts, properties, political connections, business partnerships, and the identities of every important person working for Anthony. Marcus became more than an advisor. He became family. Anthony trusted him enough to become godfather to his only daughter, Emily Callahan. That evening, Marcus entered Anthony's private office carrying a leather folder. "We have a problem in Detroit," Marcus said. Anthony turned away from the window. "What kind of problem?" "Someone is interfering with our shipping contracts." "Who?" "We don't know yet." Anthony frowned. For the past 2 years, strange problems had been appearing across his organization. A warehouse in Milwaukee had been raided after an anonymous tip. A trusted businessman in Cleveland suddenly withdrew from a major agreement. A city official in Chicago unexpectedly began cooperating with investigators. Every incident seemed unrelated, but Anthony was beginning to see a pattern. "Someone is talking," Anthony said. Marcus remained calm. "That's possible." Anthony walked toward his desk. "I want every senior man investigated." Marcus hesitated. "Every senior man?" "Everyone." Their eyes met. For 20 years, Anthony had trusted Marcus completely. Marcus slowly nodded. "I'll handle it." Later that night, Marcus drove alone to an underground parking garage beneath a hotel in downtown Chicago. A man wearing a gray coat waited beside a black SUV. Marcus stepped out of his car. The stranger handed him a sealed envelope. "You have 72 hours, the man said. Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph of Anthony Callahan. Marcus stared at it for several seconds. Then he smiled. After 20 years, he whispered, "What are another 3 days?" The next morning, Anthony received an unexpected visitor. Her name was Claire Bennett. She was 34 years old, sharp-eyed, cautious, and one of the best forensic accountants in New York City. Anthony had hired her secretly. Not even Marcus knew she was coming. Claire entered Anthony's private library carrying a laptop and several documents. "You said you suspected someone inside your organization," she said. "I do." "How far inside?" Anthony looked toward the closed door. "Close enough to destroy everything." Claire opened her laptop. For 3 weeks, she had been studying the financial records of Anthony's companies. At first, everything appeared normal. Then she discovered something unusual. Small amounts of money had been transferred from dozens of businesses over nearly 2 decades. Each transaction was too small to attract attention, but together, they formed something enormous. Claire turned the laptop toward Anthony. 20 years, she said. "Someone has been moving money out of your businesses for 20 years. Anthony's face hardened. "How much?" "Approximately $43 million. The room became silent. "Where did it go?" Claire placed a document on the table. "Shell companies in Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, and overseas accounts." "Who controls them?" "I'm still working on that." Anthony stared at the screen. Only 3 people had enough financial access to hide something for that long. One was dead. One had retired years earlier. The third was Marcus Reed. Anthony immediately rejected the thought. "No." Claire looked at him. "I haven't accused anyone." "You were about to." "I follow numbers, Mr. Callahan." Numbers don't care about friendship. Anthony stood abruptly. You don't know Marcus. You hired me because you no longer know who to trust. The words struck harder than Anthony expected. Before he could respond, his phone rang. Marcus. Anthony answered. Where are you? Marcus asked. At home. I need to see you. Something happened in Detroit. What happened? Our warehouse burned down. Anthony's expression changed. When? An hour ago. Anthony ended the call. Claire quietly closed her laptop. Another coincidence? She asked. Anthony said nothing. That evening, Anthony flew to Detroit with Marcus and 2 security men. The warehouse was still smoking when they arrived. Fire crews moved through the damaged structure. Marcus stood beside Anthony. We lost everything, Marcus said. Anthony looked at him carefully. For the first time in 20 years, he did not see his closest friend. He saw a suspect. And Marcus noticed. Later that night, Marcus entered his hotel room and locked the door. He opened a secure phone. A message was waiting. He knows. Marcus typed a reply. Then we move tonight. Anthony returned to Chicago shortly after midnight. Something felt wrong immediately. His driver was not waiting at the private airport. Instead, a young employee named Tyler Brooks stood beside a black sedan. Where's Daniel? Anthony asked. Tyler looked nervous. He didn't show up, sir. Anthony turned toward Marcus. Marcus shrugged. Maybe he's sick. Anthony said nothing. They entered the vehicle. 20 minutes later, Anthony's phone rang. Claire Bennett. Her voice was urgent. Where are you? Heading home. Don't go home. Anthony leaned forward. What happened? I found the owner of the shell companies. Anthony looked at Marcus, who was sitting beside him. Tell me. Claire paused. It's Marcus Reed. Anthony felt his stomach tighten. At that exact moment, the sedan suddenly turned away from the highway. Anthony looked through the windshield. This isn't the road to my house. Tyler gripped the steering wheel. I know. Marcus slowly reached inside his jacket. Anthony moved first. He grabbed Marcus's wrist and slammed it against the door. The car swerved. Tyler shouted. Anthony and Marcus struggled in the back seat as the sedan crossed 2 lanes of traffic. 20 years. Anthony shouted. Marcus pushed him away. You never understood what those 20 years cost me. Tyler suddenly hit the brakes. The car spun across the wet road and crashed into a concrete barrier. For several seconds, everything was silent. Anthony forced open the damaged door and stumbled onto the road. Marcus escaped through the opposite side. A second vehicle appeared in the distance. Marcus ran toward it. Anthony tried to follow, but the SUV stopped beside Marcus and quickly disappeared into the night. Tyler climbed from the wrecked sedan. I'm sorry, Mr. Callahan. Anthony looked at him. You saved my life. Tyler shook his head. No. Claire did. She called me before we left the airport. Anthony stared at the empty highway. His closest friend had betrayed him. But that was only the beginning. By sunrise, Marcus had taken control of 3 of Anthony's businesses. Several senior members had switched sides. 2 bank accounts had been emptied. And confidential documents had been delivered to federal investigators. Marcus had not planned a simple betrayal. He had spent 20 years building a second empire inside Anthony's first one. Now he intended to take everything. Anthony disappeared from Chicago. News spread quickly. Some believed he had fled the country. Others believed Marcus had eliminated him. Neither was true. Anthony was hiding in an abandoned apartment above an old restaurant in Philadelphia. Only 3 people knew he was alive. Claire Bennett, Tyler Brooks, and Detective Samuel Carter, retired Philadelphia police detective who had known Anthony before either man entered the criminal world. Samuel was 65 now, with gray hair and tired eyes. You trusted Marcus because he saved you 20 years ago, Samuel said. Anthony sat quietly at the kitchen table. He did save me. No, Samuel replied. He made you believe he did. Samuel placed an old newspaper clipping on the table. 20 years earlier, Anthony had nearly been arrested after financial evidence appeared inside one of his companies. Marcus had supposedly discovered the evidence and destroyed it before investigators arrived. That event created their friendship. But Samuel had uncovered something different. Marcus planted the evidence himself, Samuel said. Anthony looked up. What? He created the problem. Then he solved it. Anthony stared at the clipping. His entire friendship with Marcus had been built on a lie. Samuel continued. Marcus didn't join your organization accidentally. He targeted you. Why? Samuel opened another file. Inside was a photograph of a man named Richard Reed, Marcus's father. 25 years earlier, Richard had owned a trucking company in Baltimore. Anthony's organization had forced him out of several major contracts. The company collapsed. Richard lost everything. Marcus had blamed Anthony ever since. This was never about money, Samuel said. Anthony looked at the photograph. It was revenge. 20 years of revenge. Meanwhile, Marcus was celebrating in Anthony's former Chicago mansion. He believed he had won. But Claire had discovered one final secret. Marcus had kept detailed records of every illegal agreement he had arranged. Every payment. Every secret partner. Every betrayal. The files were stored on a private server located inside an office building in Manhattan. Anthony looked at Claire. Can you access it? Not remotely. Then we go to New York. Samuel shook his head. Marcus will expect that. Anthony stood. For 20 years, he knew exactly how I would react. He picked up his coat. But now he thinks I'm desperate. Anthony looked at the others. That makes him predictable. 3 days later, Marcus Reed arrived in New York City. He had received a message from Anthony. One last meeting. Marcus could have ignored it. Instead, he accepted. After 20 years of pretending to be Anthony's friend, he wanted Anthony to understand why he had lost. The meeting took place inside an empty restaurant overlooking the East River. Marcus entered alone. Anthony was waiting near the window. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Marcus smiled. You look tired. Anthony nodded. Betrayal does that. Marcus walked toward the table. You destroyed my father. I destroyed a business. You destroyed his life. And you spent 20 years destroying mine. Marcus sat down. I spent 20 years studying you. Anthony poured himself a glass of water. You learned everything. Yes. My weaknesses? Yes. My habits? Yes. My organization? Marcus smiled. Every detail. Anthony leaned back. Then you should have remembered one thing. Marcus's smile disappeared. What? I never attend important meetings without a distraction. At that moment, Marcus's phone began ringing. Then another phone. Then another. Marcus answered. His expression changed immediately. The Manhattan server had been accessed. Claire had copied everything. Marcus stood. What did you do? Anthony remained seated. I gave your records to people who dislike being betrayed. Marcus rushed toward the door. 2 men entered. Not Anthony's men. They were federal agents. Marcus froze. Behind them stood Claire Bennett and Samuel Carter. Marcus looked back at Anthony. You gave them everything? Anthony nodded. Enough. You'll destroy yourself too. Maybe. Marcus laughed bitterly. Then why? Anthony stood and walked toward him. Because you made one mistake. Marcus stared at him. You thought losing my empire was the worst thing that could happen to me. The agents escorted Marcus away. Anthony watched through the restaurant window as Marcus was placed inside a waiting vehicle. 20 years of friendship had ended without violence, without revenge, without another secret deal. Anthony disappeared soon afterward. Some said he entered witness protection. Others claimed he moved somewhere along the California coast under a different name. Claire returned to New York and built one of the most respected financial investigation firms in the country. Tyler left Chicago and opened a small transportation company in Texas. Samuel returned to retirement in Philadelphia. And Marcus Reed? He spent years thinking about the same question. How had a plan that took 20 years to build collapsed in less than a week? The answer was simple. Marcus had studied Anthony's empire. He had studied Anthony's habits. He had studied Anthony's weaknesses. But after 20 years of pretending to be his friend, Marcus made the mistake that destroyed everything. He believed he knew the man. He never did.